Helena Blavatsky, the enigmatic founder of modern Theosophy, delivered one of the most profound warnings about human existence that most people completely misunderstand. According to her extensive studies of ancient wisdom traditions and her claimed contact with the Mahatmas, humanity is trapped in an endless cycle of reincarnation, not because of divine punishment, but because of a fundamental misunderstanding of karmic law that keeps souls bound to the material plane. Blavatsky taught that reincarnation is not the beautiful spiritual progression that many New Age teachings suggest, but rather a cosmic necessity for souls who have not yet learned to transcend their attachment to physical existence. In her masterwork, The Secret Doctrine, she revealed that each return to Earth represents both an opportunity and a burden, a chance to evolve consciousness, while simultaneously risking further entanglement in material desires. The hidden karmic law that Blavatsky warned about operates on principles that most spiritual seekers never discover. Unlike the simplified understanding of karma as mere cause and effect, she taught that karma functions through multiple planes of existence simultaneously, creating complex webs of obligation and attachment that can bind a soul to repeated incarnations for millennia. According to Theosophical teachings, the average human soul has been reincarnating for thousands of lifetimes, accumulating not just positive and negative karma, but what Blavatsky called karmic momentum, a psychological and spiritual inertia that automatically pulls consciousness back into physical form regardless of the soul's development level. This momentum is created through our deepest unconscious patterns, our unexamined desires, and most critically, our fundamental misidentification with the temporary aspects of existence. Blavatsky warned that without understanding these hidden mechanisms, even highly spiritual individuals would continue returning to Earth, life after life, making progress but never achieving the ultimate goal of conscious evolution beyond the need for physical incarnation. The key to understanding this hidden law lies in recognizing that reincarnation serves the evolution of consciousness, but only when approached with the correct knowledge and inner development that Blavatsky spent her lifetime trying to transmit to humanity. Chapter 2: The 7 Principles and Karmic Bondage. Blavatsky's revolutionary teaching about human constitution reveals why most souls remain trapped in the reincarnation cycle. According to Theosophical doctrine, humans are not simple dual beings of body and soul, but complex entities composed of 7 distinct principles that operate across multiple planes of existence. Understanding these principles is crucial to comprehending why karmic bondage occurs and how it can be transcended. The lower 4 principles, the physical body, etheric double, astral body, and animal soul, are what Blavatsky called the perishable personality. These aspects of human nature are designed to dissolve after death, returning their constituent elements to their respective planes. However, when consciousness becomes too identified with these temporary vehicles, it creates karmic attachments that demand resolution through future incarnations. The higher 3 principles, the mental body, spiritual soul, and divine spark, constitute what she termed the immortal individuality. These aspects carry forward from life to life, accumulating experience and, unfortunately, unresolved karma. The tragedy that Blavatsky identified is that most humans live entirely within the lower principles, never developing conscious contact with their higher nature. This misidentification creates what Theosophical teachings call personality karma, the accumulated desires, fears, attachments, and unconscious patterns of the temporary self that become so powerful they override the soul's natural tendency toward liberation. Each lifetime spent in complete identification with personality creates stronger bonds to material existence. Blavatsky taught that certain types of karma are particularly binding. Emotional karma created through intense attachments, intellectual karma formed through rigid belief systems, and what she called magnetic karma, the unconscious energetic bonds formed with other souls, can create karmic obligations lasting multiple lifetimes. The hidden aspect of this law is that good karma can be just as binding as negative karma when it stems from personality-level actions. Acts of charity, kindness, or spiritual practice performed for personal satisfaction, recognition, or from attachment to results create what Blavatsky called golden chains, beautiful, but nonetheless limiting bonds to incarnation. Chapter 3: The Devachan Delusion and Interrupted Evolution. One of Blavatsky's most startling revelations concerns the post-death state called Devachan, which she described as a kind of spiritual digestion period between incarnations. Her teaching suggests that most souls, instead of using this time for genuine spiritual advancement, become trapped in elaborate thought forms and wish fulfillment fantasies that actually impede their evolution and guarantee future reincarnation. According to Theosophical doctrine, Devachan is not the paradise that many spiritual traditions describe, but rather a subjective state where the consciousness experiences the fulfillment of its earthly desires and unfulfilled aspirations. While this might sound pleasant, Blavatsky warned that souls can spend centuries or even millennia in these self-created dream states, living out elaborate scenarios based on their earthly attachments and incomplete understandings. The critical problem with the Devachanic state is that it provides such complete satisfaction to the personality consciousness that it reinforces the very patterns and desires that created karmic bondage in the first place. A soul might spend hundreds of years in a Devachanic state, believing it is progressing spiritually, when in reality it is simply strengthening its attachment to particular forms of experience. Blavatsky taught that truly advanced souls either skip the Devachanic state entirely or move through it quickly, remaining conscious and focused on genuine spiritual development rather than personal satisfaction. The ability to maintain conscious awareness during the death transition and in post-mortem states is one of the keys to eventual liberation from the reincarnation cycle. The hidden karmic law operating here is that unconscious post-death experiences create karmic momentum just as powerfully as earthly actions. Time spent in Devachanic fantasy reinforces the mental and emotional patterns that draw consciousness back into physical form. Each elaborate Devachanic experience based on earthly attachments makes the next incarnation more likely and more binding. This is why Blavatsky emphasized the crucial importance of conscious dying and post-death navigation. Without this knowledge, even highly developed souls can become trapped in cycles of incarnation and Devachanic dreaming that last for astronomical periods of time. Chapter 4. The Law of Magnetic Attraction and Karmic Groups. Blavatsky revealed that one of the most hidden aspects of karmic law involves what she called magnetic attraction between souls who have formed strong energetic bonds across multiple lifetimes. These karmic groups reincarnate together repeatedly, creating complex webs of obligation, attachment, and mutual karmic debt that can trap entire clusters of souls in endless cycles of return. According to Theosophical teachings, souls naturally form what might be called karmic families, groups of individuals who become magnetically bound together through intense shared experiences, strong emotions, unresolved conflicts, or deep spiritual connections. These magnetic bonds operate across the death transition, drawing the same souls back into incarnation together lifetime after lifetime. While this might seem like a beautiful arrangement that allows souls to continue loving relationships and resolve conflicts, Blavatsky warned that these karmic groups often become spiritually stagnant. The familiar patterns of relationship, the comfort of known dynamics, and the tendency to repeat rather than transcend previous experiences can prevent all members of the group from achieving genuine spiritual advancement. The hidden law here is that love itself, when based on attachment rather than impersonal compassion, creates some of the strongest karmic bonds. Parent-child relationships, romantic partnerships, deep friendships, and even intense antagonistic relationships create magnetic connections that can persist for thousands of years, drawing souls back into incarnation to continue these patterns. Blavatsky taught that certain souls take on the role of what she called karmic anchors within these groups, individuals whose strong attachments and unresolved patterns hold the entire group in incarnation. As long as one member of a karmic group remains bound to material existence through attachment, all connected souls may continue returning to support that individual's evolution. The liberation of a karmic group requires that all members simultaneously reach a level of development where they can love without attachment, serve without expectation, and maintain connection without bondage. This coordination of spiritual development across multiple souls is one of the reasons why liberation from reincarnation is so rare and difficult. Chapter 5. The Illusion of Spiritual Progress and False Liberation. Perhaps Blavatsky's most challenging teaching involves her assertion that many souls who believe they are making genuine spiritual progress are actually deepening their karmic bondage through subtle forms of spiritual materialism and unconscious attachment to their own development. This creates what she called the spiritualist trap, a particularly insidious form of karmic binding that can persist across many incarnations. According to Theosophical doctrine, the ego mind is extraordinarily clever at co-opting spiritual experiences and practices for its own perpetuation. Souls may spend entire lifetimes engaged in meditation, study, and service, believing they are advancing toward liberation, while actually strengthening their identification with being spiritual persons who are progressing toward enlightenment. Blavatsky warned that attachment to spiritual identity, pride in mystical experiences, desire for occult powers, and even the wish to help humanity can create karmic bonds as strong as any material attachment. The soul that becomes identified with its role as a teacher, healer, or spiritual seeker may reincarnate repeatedly to continue playing these satisfying roles. The hidden karmic law operating here is that spiritual progress itself becomes a form of karma when pursued with attachment to results or identification with the achiever. Every meditation session performed with the desire to advance, every act of service done with attachment to being helpful, every study undertaken with pride and knowledge creates what Blavatsky called dharmic karma, bondage through righteousness. This is particularly dangerous because dharmic karma feels positive and appears to be leading toward liberation. Souls trapped in this pattern may incarnate as spiritual teachers, mystics, or healers for many lifetimes, genuinely helping others, but never achieving the complete selflessness required for final liberation. Blavatsky taught that true spiritual development is characterized by the gradual dissolution of all sense of being a person who is progressing spiritually. The advanced soul eventually realizes that there is no individual to be liberated and no personal achievement in spiritual development. But this realization is often preceded by many lifetimes of subtle spiritual ego building. Chapter 6. The Three Halls of Learning and Graduated Bondage. Blavatsky's teaching about the three halls represents one of her most sophisticated explanations of how consciousness progresses through different levels of karmic bondage and potential liberation. Understanding these stages is crucial for recognizing where one stands in the evolutionary journey and what specific karmic patterns must be transcended to avoid continued reincarnation. The Hall of Ignorance represents the condition of most incarnating souls: complete identification with physical existence, emotional reactions, and mental concepts without any awareness of higher spiritual realities. Souls in this stage create karma through unconscious actions and reactions, driven by instinct, desire, and survival needs. Their reincarnation is automatic and inevitable because they lack the consciousness required to examine or change their patterns. The Hall of Learning is where most spiritual seekers find themselves, aware of higher realities and actively pursuing spiritual development, but still identified with being individuals who are progressing toward goals. This stage is characterized by the accumulation of spiritual knowledge, the development of psychic abilities, and the performance of service and spiritual practices. However, all activity in this hall is still performed by a sense of personal self-seeking advancement. The Hall of Wisdom represents the condition of souls who have transcended personal identification while maintaining conscious awareness. These souls no longer reincarnate through karmic compulsion, but may choose to return to serve the evolution of consciousness itself. Their actions generate no karma, because there is no personal self to receive the results of action. Blavatsky warned that the transition from the Hall of Learning to the Hall of Wisdom is the most dangerous passage in human evolution. Many souls become trapped at the threshold, attached to their advanced spiritual condition, and unable to make the final surrender of personal identity required for true liberation. The hidden karmic law governing these stages is that each hall has its own forms of bondage that must be completely transcended before progression is possible. Movement between halls is not gradual, but represents quantum leaps in consciousness that often require multiple lifetimes of preparation, followed by a decisive moment of complete transformation. Chapter 7. The Lunar Pitris and Ancestral Karma. Blavatsky's esoteric anthropology reveals that human souls carry forward not only their individual karma, but also what she called ancestral karma, the accumulated patterns and unresolved influences of their evolutionary predecessors. This teaching suggests that reincarnation serves not just individual development, but the gradual spiritualization of matter itself through conscious human participation. According to Theosophical doctrine, the Lunar Pitris are the evolved consciousness remnants of a previous evolutionary cycle who contribute the lower principles of human constitution. These ancient consciousnesses carry forward their own unresolved patterns and limitations, which become part of the karmic inheritance of each incarnating soul. This means that humans are working not only to resolve their personal karma, but also to redeem the accumulated unconsciousness of their evolutionary heritage. The hidden karmic law here is that individual liberation is intimately connected to the liberation of what Blavatsky called the Deva evolution, the gradual conscious awakening of matter and form itself. Souls continue reincarnating partly to serve this larger evolutionary purpose, helping to infuse consciousness into the material plane through their embodied spiritual development. This creates a paradox that Blavatsky emphasized. Genuine spiritual advancement simultaneously increases both the soul's capacity for liberation and its responsibility to serve the evolution of consciousness in matter. Highly developed souls often choose continued incarnation, not because of personal karma, but because of their compassionate commitment to the liberation of all forms of consciousness. The ancestral karma carried by each soul includes not just human predecessors, but also connections to what Theosophical teachings call the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms. Certain karmic patterns related to humanity's relationship with nature, the treatment of animals, and the conscious use of material resources create obligations that can only be resolved through repeated incarnation. Blavatsky taught that final liberation requires not just personal purification, but also the conscious redemption of humanity's collective relationship with the material world and all forms of life within it. Chapter 8. The Watchers and the Law of Spiritual Hierarchy. Blavatsky revealed that the reincarnation cycle operates under the guidance of what she called the Watchers, advanced consciousnesses who monitor and sometimes intervene in the karmic development of evolving souls. Understanding this hidden dimension of karmic law reveals why some souls seem to be given opportunities for rapid advancement, while others appear to struggle through repeated difficult incarnations. According to Theosophical teaching, these watchers are themselves former humans who have transcended the need for physical incarnation, but choose to remain connected to earthly evolution, to guide and assist other souls. They operate according to strict laws that govern how much assistance can be provided without interfering with the natural learning process that karma is designed to facilitate. The hidden karmic law governing this assistance is that help can only be given when a soul has earned the right to receive it through genuine effort and selfless motivation. Souls who are primarily motivated by personal desires for advancement, power, or even liberation cannot receive direct assistance, because such help would actually impede their development by strengthening their ego identification. Blavatsky taught that these watchers sometimes engineer specific incarnations, relationships, and circumstances to provide opportunities for rapid karmic resolution. However, they can only create opportunities. The incarnating soul must choose to recognize and utilize these chances for advancement. Many souls miss or reject the very experiences that could lead to their liberation, because they conflict with personal preferences or comfort zones. The most advanced form of assistance comes through what Blavatsky called karmic acceleration, the compression of many lifetimes' worth of learning and resolution into a single incarnation. This is offered only to souls who have demonstrated complete dedication to spiritual development and willingness to sacrifice personal comfort for truth. Recognition of the Watcher's presence and assistance requires a level of impersonal awareness that most incarnating souls have not yet developed. The soul must become capable of recognizing guidance that comes not through comfortable or obviously beneficial circumstances, but through challenging experiences that offer opportunities for transcendence. Chapter 9. The Dweller on the Threshold and Final Resistance. One of Blavatsky's most important warnings concerns what she called the dweller on the threshold, the accumulated force of all unresolved karma and unconscious patterns that presents itself as a final obstacle before liberation from reincarnation becomes possible. This entity, formed from the soul's own creations across multiple lifetimes, represents the most dangerous phase of spiritual development. According to Theosophical teaching, the dweller is not an external demon, but the concentrated essence of everything the soul has been reluctant to face, integrate, or transcend. It appears when the soul approaches the possibility of final liberation, manifesting as intense temptations, overwhelming fears, spiritual crises, or circumstances that trigger every remaining attachment and identification. The hidden karmic law governing this phase is that liberation cannot be achieved by avoiding or transcending the dweller, but only by completely accepting and integrating all aspects of one's karmic inheritance. The soul must demonstrate that it can remain centered in impersonal awareness while fully experiencing every pattern, desire, and fear that has accumulated across lifetimes. Blavatsky warned that many advanced souls recoil from this final confrontation and choose continued incarnation, rather than face the complete dissolution of all familiar aspects of selfhood. The dweller presents itself in whatever form will most effectively trigger the soul's remaining attachments, whether through spiritual pride, fear of annihilation, concern for loved ones, or attachment to service. The most subtle aspect of the dweller's influence is its ability to convince the soul that continued incarnation is the more spiritual choice. It may present compelling reasons why the soul should return to help humanity, complete certain relationships, or perfect particular abilities. These justifications often contain partial truth, making them especially difficult to see through. Victory over the dweller requires what Blavatsky called conscious crucifixion, the willing acceptance of the complete death of personal identity while maintaining full awareness. This is not a symbolic process, but an actual dissolution of the psychological and spiritual structures that have maintained the soul's sense of separate existence across countless lifetimes. Chapter 10. The Science of Breath and Karmic Liberation. Blavatsky taught that one of the most practical methods for transcending karmic bondage involves the conscious direction of what she called the life principle through specific breathing practices combined with focused will and impersonal awareness. Her instructions on pranayama, drawn from her studies with Eastern masters, reveal a hidden science for accelerating karmic resolution and eventual liberation from reincarnation. According to Theosophical doctrine, breath is the direct link between consciousness and the life force that animates physical existence. Through conscious breathing practices, a soul can begin to direct this life force in ways that dissolve karmic patterns rather than creating new ones. However, Blavatsky warned that these practices are dangerous when performed with personal motivation or without proper understanding of their effects. The hidden karmic law governing breathwork is that conscious direction of life force amplifies whatever motivation and level of consciousness is present in the practitioner. If performed with ego-based desires for powers, experiences, or advancement, breathing practices will actually strengthen karmic bondage by intensifying the personal self's identification with its abilities and achievements. Blavatsky taught specific sequences of breathing combined with particular meditative focuses that are designed to gradually dissolve the etheric and astral patterns that hold consciousness in incarnation. These practices work by consciously directing life force in ways that reverse the normal flow of energy that binds awareness to physical and emotional experience. The most advanced practices involve what she called conscious dying, using breath and awareness to practice the complete withdrawal of consciousness from physical identification, while maintaining full awareness. Souls who master this practice can navigate the death transition consciously and avoid the unconscious patterns that lead to automatic reincarnation. However, Blavatsky emphasized that these practices must be approached with complete impersonality and surrender to the divine will rather than personal ambition. The goal is not to gain control over life and death, but to become so transparent to divine consciousness that personal karma is transcended through complete selflessness. Chapter 11. The Path of Initiation and Accelerated Evolution. Blavatsky revealed that there exists a path of accelerated spiritual development called initiation, which allows certain souls to transcend multiple lifetimes of gradual evolution through concentrated spiritual training and conscious confrontation with karmic patterns. However, she warned that this path is extraordinarily demanding and dangerous, requiring complete dedication and willingness to sacrifice everything for truth. According to Theosophical teaching, the initiatory path involves the deliberate acceleration of karma, bringing forward the results of actions from multiple lifetimes to be experienced and resolved within a single incarnation. This creates intense challenges and opportunities that can either lead to rapid liberation or to spiritual catastrophe if approached without proper preparation and guidance. The hidden karmic law governing initiation is that acceleration can only be safely undertaken by souls who have already demonstrated genuine impersonality and selfless motivation. The forces unleashed during initiatory training will magnify whatever level of consciousness and motivation is present, making the path extremely dangerous for anyone still motivated by personal desires or spiritual ambition. Blavatsky described several levels of initiation, each representing a specific threshold of karmic transcendence and spiritual development. The first initiation involves gaining conscious control over physical appetites and emotional reactions. The second requires transcendence of mental attachments and the development of genuine impersonal compassion. Higher initiations involve increasingly subtle forms of ego death and spiritual rebirth. The most challenging aspect of the initiatory path is that it requires complete surrender of the personal will to divine guidance, while simultaneously demanding the development of enormous strength and discriminative wisdom. The candidate must become both utterly receptive and completely self-directed, passive to higher consciousness while actively engaging with spiritual challenges. Blavatsky emphasized that true initiation cannot be sought or achieved through personal effort, but must be offered by the spiritual hierarchy when a soul has demonstrated readiness through lifetimes of selfless service and genuine spiritual development. The desire for initiation itself indicates that the soul is not yet ready to receive it. Chapter 12. The Final Liberation and Service to Evolution. Blavatsky's ultimate teaching reveals that liberation from reincarnation is not the end of spiritual development, but rather the beginning of conscious participation in what she called the Great Work, the ongoing evolution of consciousness throughout the cosmos. Souls who achieve liberation face a choice between individual transcendence and continued service to the evolution of life on Earth. According to Theosophical doctrine, truly liberated souls often choose to remain connected to human evolution as part of the spiritual hierarchy that guides planetary development. These beings, no longer bound by personal karma, can incarnate by choice to serve specific evolutionary purposes, or can work from higher planes to assist other souls in their development. The hidden karmic law governing this choice is that complete liberation naturally gives rise to impersonal compassion for all forms of consciousness still bound in evolutionary development. The liberated soul experiences such unity with all life that the welfare of other beings becomes as important as its own transcendence, leading to voluntary service rather than individual escape. Blavatsky taught that the highest form of spiritual development involves what she called conscious cooperation with the Logos, becoming a self-aware participant in the divine intelligence that guides cosmic evolution. This requires not just personal purification, but also the development of cosmic consciousness and the ability to serve the needs of life itself, rather than any personal or even human agenda. The souls who choose this path of continued service create what Theosophical teaching calls the bridge, a conscious connection between human evolution and higher forms of cosmic consciousness. Through their voluntary incarnations and guidance, they help ensure that humanity as a whole eventually transcends the need for unconscious reincarnation. However, Blavatsky warned that even this choice of service can become a subtle form of bondage if approached with any trace of personal satisfaction or spiritual pride. The truly liberated soul serves not from choice, but from the natural expression of its realized unity with all existence, acting spontaneously according to evolutionary necessity rather than personal decision. The ultimate mystery that Blavatsky pointed toward is that individual liberation and cosmic service are not separate goals, but different aspects of the same realization, the direct understanding that consciousness itself is evolving through all forms of existence, and that personal transcendence is meaningful only when it serves this larger evolutionary purpose. Understanding these hidden karmic laws that Blavatsky revealed can transform your entire approach to spiritual development and help you recognize the patterns that may be keeping you bound to repeated incarnations. What aspects of these teachings resonate most with your own spiritual journey? And have you noticed any of these karmic patterns operating in your own life? We'd love to hear your insights in the comments below. And if this exploration of Blavatsky's wisdom has opened new perspectives for you, please subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into transformative spiritual teachings.